Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
We have been given a gift by God today to usher in a new dynasty.
Now you get RFK Jr.
Don't you want a president who's going to make America healthy again?
You get Tulsi Gabbard.
Putting our country in a continual state of war.
You get Elon Musk and you get J.D. Vance.
A hell of a way to start the next 4 years.
The right-wing Avenger.
We have an army of digital soldiers.
Department of Defense under Donald Trump will achieve peace through strength.
Shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one.
Rescission of 78 Biden-era executive actions, executive orders, presidential memoranda, and others.
The golden age of America has most definitely begun.
Begin preparing the 30,000-person migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay.
They're getting the dirtbags off these streets.
There's one guy who can fix this shit, and it's Donald Trump.
What's storm, Mr. President?
You'll find out.
Our movement is about replacing a failed and corrupt political establishment with a new government controlled by you, the American people. The Washington establishment and the financial and media corporations that fund it exist for only one reason: to protect and enrich itself. The establishment has trillions of dollars at stake in this election. For those who control the levers of power in Washington and for the global special interest, they partner with these people that don't have your good in mind. Our campaign represents a true existential threat like they haven't seen before. This is not simply another 4-year election. This is a crossroads in the history of our civilization that will determine whether or not we, the people, reclaim control over our government. The political establishment that is trying to stop us is the same group responsible for our disastrous trade deals, massive illegal immigration, and economic and foreign policies that have bled our country dry. The political establishment has brought about the destruction of our factories and our jobs as they flee to Mexico, China, and other countries all around the world. It's a global power structure that is responsible for the economic decisions that have robbed our working class, stripped our country of its wealth, and put that money into the pockets of a handful of large corporations and political entities. This is a struggle for the survival of our nation, and this will be our last chance to save it. This election will determine whether we're a free nation or whether we have only the illusion of democracy, but are in fact controlled by a small handful of global special interests rigging the system, and our system is rigged. This is reality. You know it, they know it, I know it, and pretty much the whole world knows it. The Clinton machine is at the center of this power structure. We've seen this firsthand in the WikiLeaks documents, in which Hillary Clinton meets in secret with international banks to plot the destruction of U.S. sovereignty in order to enrich these global financial powers, her special interest friends, and her donors. Honestly, she should be locked up. The most powerful weapon deployed by the Clintons is the corporate media, the press. Let's be clear on one thing. The corporate media in our country is no longer involved in journalism. They're a political special interest, no different than any lobbyist or other financial entity with a total political agenda, and the agenda is not for you, it's for themselves. Anyone who challenges their control is deemed a sexist, a racist, a xenophobe. They will lie, and then again, they will do worse than that. They will do whatever's necessary. The Clintons are criminals. Remember that. This is well documented. And the establishment that protects them has engaged in a massive cover-up of widespread criminal activity at the State Department and the Clinton Foundation in order to keep the Clintons in power. They knew they would throw every lie they could at me and my family and my loved ones. They knew they would stop at nothing to try to stop me. Nevertheless, I take all of these slings and arrows gladly for you. I take them for our movement so that we can have our country back. I knew this day would arrive. It's only a question of when. And I knew the American people would rise above it and vote for the future they deserve. The only thing that can stop this corrupt machine is you. The only force strong enough to save our country is us. The only people brave enough to vote out this corrupt establishment is you, the American people. Our great civilization has come upon a moment of reckoning. I didn't need to do this, folks, believe me. I built a great company, and I had a wonderful life. I could have enjoyed the fruits and benefit of years of successful business deals and businesses for myself and my family, instead of going through this absolute horror show of lies, deceptions, malicious attacks. Who would have thought? I'm doing it because this country has given me so much, and I feel so strongly that it's my turn to give back to the country that I love. I'm doing this for the people and for the movement, and we will take back this country for you, and we will make America great again.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name is Josh, and welcome to the Red Pill Project's Daily Dose, live with you Monday through Friday. I hope everybody is doing well out there. Late start to tonight. Man, it's just been a busy day. There's a lot going on. My kids had a wrestling tournament after school. It was a big tournament. It was a semifinal state qualifier. And so they won. So they go on next Monday. They do the same thing again. My son did really well tonight. So proud of him. And it didn't get out till like 9:30 my time, didn't get home till 10 o'clock. So now we're doing the show because you know what? There's a lot going on. There's a lot of things happening. So I'm excited to talk about a lot of this stuff and a lot of Q references. And I know there's some haters out there in the social media world like Q's fake. It's a cult. Get the fuck out of here. If you're looking at this right now and seeing what the Department of Labor, the State Department X account, the DOD, what Trump is posting, and you're saying that it's all nonsense, well, it's either fake, but they're utilizing it as a marketing ploy, or it's very real. The question is what comes from it? And so when we see comms, when we see information, let's assure that there's actionability that actually comes from it. And over the past 2 to 3 days, we've actually had it, and it's actually happening. So this is going to be really interesting. I'm really excited about this show tonight because there's a lot to talk about, and everything we've been talking about for the last year is now like in the public circles. You know, we broke the Monroe Doctrine like 6 months ago. We talked about that. I have a show out there called the Trump Doctrine. I did this tonight, the Trump Doctrine. But we did a show months ago about the Trump Doctrine. We talked about the global framework of how it's shifting and what's happening economically, what's happening geopolitically, what's going on with resources. We said since January of 2025, this is about resources. In Ukraine, we've been talking about that for Ukraine in the last few years. And now this is all coming. The Trump administration is like, yeah, it's about the resources. What are you going to do about it? I love it because the confirmation that we're getting right now from the Trump administration in the context of the forming of a multipolar world, I think is very, very important because it affects you and me. But it also relates back to that video you just watched of Donald Trump talking about how he's going to return power back to the American people. And see, the thing with a multipolar world or the national sovereignty that is being imposed within this multipolar framework is that Trump is doing it with the people in mind and the people first. And I know that sometimes it doesn't feel that way. We look at all the business deals and everything that's going on, but I assure you the economic framework that's being put in place and built out right now is exactly that. It is meant for the people. And Venezuela is actually a very good key to this, because he said, we're going to give the oil back to the people. Very interesting there. And that video, by the way, if you did not know, was posted last night by Donald Trump in a mega post that he did over 55 minutes. Now, I love this. He posted 94 posts in 55 minutes. Now, 94 divided by 2 is 47. He's the 47th president. I love that. But he did it in 55 minutes. And one of those posts halfway through just happens to be with a timestamp of 0055. And it was this post with the anniversary delta of January 5th, 2019. And it was that video right there that you just watched. And the post for that, what just happened? That was weird. Play screen. There we go. And the post for that is right here. Look at this. There's a YouTube video right there. For decades, the UN encouraged donor countries to contribute 0.7% of their gross domestic product on foreign aid. The corruption infiltration at the top of worldwide has spread like cancer. Listen again carefully. The Great Awakening. Now, Trump did it at 55. Now, 55, we know, is representative of my fellow Americans. The storm is upon us. And we've gotten indications of that throughout the last few days from the Trump administration. One specifically just happens to be this one from the Department of Labor. Now, this was crazy. Patriots in control right there. And I think that there's actually a corresponding timestamp to this. Someone was talking about this last night. So this is Patriots in control. You just know that what that means right there, right? But I want to go here and look real quick. So I know Brad was talking about this last night. Oh, I know what it was. Actually, I know exactly what it was. So let me find the post and I'll bring it up here. But the interesting thing is the 1652 timestamp of this right here goes back to post 642 or 652 or 452. 452, Josh. Now, why is that interesting? Because it's this post right here. Enough is enough. Owls, good hunting. Now, that's pretty crazy because a few days before all of this began, I posted on a Trump timestamp. It was specifically about Iran, right? So Trump posted this one right here. If Iran shots and violently kills peaceful protesters, which is their custom, the United States of America will come to the rescue. We are locked and loaded and ready to go. Thank you for your attention on this matter, President Donald J. Trump. And shots, obviously, is missing an O right here. So when you put that O into kill brackets, you go into here, kill brackets, you get this post right here. And we got Patriots in control, boom, right there, representing Patriots were in control of the mission that was a go. Enough is enough. And you see right there, G and O in kill brackets, which represent the go. And I said it right here. Understand what he is saying here. This is the green light go for operators on the ground to begin the next phase. Misspellings matter. Shoots for shots. Missing the O. Enough is enough. Go. And then I said right after, well, it was a go, but in Venezuela. And so pretty crazy right there. Now, Alpha and I have been talking about this, and Alpha had this prediction that all of this would begin and start on 11/3. What do we mean? When Donald Trump's follower count reached 11.3 million. And guess what? It happened on the exact same day that Donald Trump's follower count reached 11.3 million. Now, people can say, oh, this is just all coincidence, Josh. It's just coinky-dinks. Okay, well, on True Social, Trump posted a series of photos of inside the Situation Room made at Mar-a-Lago. he posted pictures of Dan Kane and Hegseth and Radcliffe and Rubio and himself all during the operation. In total, there were 17 images. Then you get Pam Bondi that comes out, and what does she say? She says, the first unseal. The first unseal? Huh. The first, well, we know what that means. We all know what that means. The first indictment unseal will trigger mass population awakening. The first arrest will verify action and confirm future direction. They will fight, but you are ready. Marker 9. Now, this is crazy. The first arrest was Maduro. If we want to look at it, the first perp walked arrest, military is, think about this. I really want people to truly understand this. So think about military is the only way. Well, what the hell just happened here? We have our first indictment unsealed. We have military going in with law enforcement into a foreign country, taking their dictator who there's a warrant out for his arrest, bringing him back to stand trial. But that's not what really happened. But that is what happened. That's pretty crazy, but it had to be done through the military. I know. It's crazy, isn't it? We're in some amazing times. So Sung Soo, our buddy over there on X, he said a lot of anons ask when Q is coming back. Well, this is what Alpha and I have been saying for a long time. He says Q is public. Q is now real time. Q plus is President Trump. Enjoy the show. As in, the boards are now Trump, Flynn. It's the various different departments in the government controlled by patriots. It's Trump's Truth Social account. It's Gavino. That's where your comms are coming in from. The board is just a proxy board of reference to go in there and say, looks like this is going to happen. Or maybe it's meant to fill the void for disinformation for the bad actors so they can think that something's happening when it's really not, or a misdirection. There's a lot of different contexts that you can take in this. Now, what are the other interesting parts? This is mind-blowing. And Donald Trump is a man of symbolism. 6 years ago, on 1/3/2020, the anniversary of Soleimani's death. That's right. The head of the IRGC's Quid Forces, Soleimani, the man who planned all of the terrorist attacks against American soldiers throughout all the Middle East with IED creation stations and so forth, was killed by Donald Trump's administration in 2020, on 1/3/2020, the same day that they went and grabbed Maduro. Kind of unbelievable, isn't it? So when we look at the boards, the Q boards, it's very, very real. It's really happening. Now, tomorrow is, or in an hour from now in the East Coast, it's January 6th. This is a massive anniversary. I don't know what's going to happen. I made a prediction last night that, hey, I think we're going to see another indictment coming on January 6th. I think that it's very plausible that we could see an indictment come tomorrow or this week. John Brennan, I think, would be a good one to bring out there. So we're not going to talk much about the deep state tonight. Tonight is more about the Trump doctrine, what's happening geopolitically, what's happening on the big scale of things, and what is ramping up right now with the Trump administration. We're getting all the indications that we have just entered the storm. I mean, if you just go back to December, so, excuse me. Do you remember when Trump addressed the nation? And he came out and he did it in less than 20 minutes. He was very direct. He was very blunt. He talked to the American people, but there was no deviation. It was very serious. And it was a list of the accomplishments of what they did over an 11-year period. And I came on here and we watched it and I said, that was very underwhelming. Well, it's underwhelming for anons who've been watching all of this fold. But when you start to think about it, what Trump did there, and this is what we talked about afterwards, was that he just showed the world, everybody watching, that in 11 months, I fixed this country. I did more in 11 months than any president who came before me because I did it right. But he also stated, the beginning, I took over this country. Our military was weak, defunded, didn't have bullets to shoot. We came in, our government was broken. We were infiltrated. He was basically telling us, I can't go in and start arresting the deep state and take down the globalists when the government is fractured. But then he says, but we fixed it. But now it's under our control. Good day, goodbye, good night. And then not even, 15 days later, we're all waiting for arrests. We're all waiting for things happening. All of a sudden, boom, the new year transitions and you start to see a whole different tone and tempo from the Trump administration. And on the 3rd of January, holy shit, they showed the world who they really were. Now, Trump was asked by reporters yesterday, what is this all about? What is going on? And this was his response.
It's about peace on earth.
How is it peace on earth?
Peace on earth. We got to have peace. It's our hemisphere. The Monroe Doctrine was very important when it was done, and other presidents, a lot of them, they lost sight of it. I didn't lose sight. But it really is, it's peace on earth. It's about
peace on earth. As we've told you, was discussed in Rome in 2018 amongst representatives of China, India, Saudi Arabia, Russia, and the United States. Was talked about how they're going to look at the world from a multipolar framework and begin developing that and dismantling the Euro-globalist system that was being implemented. What else we got? We got tons of nuggets to talk about tonight. I know the lighting, I'll get the lighting fixed. I got to install a new light in here. So, General Flynn, on January 3rd, on X, everyone paying attention yet, the world just changed course. It's not simply about energy, but also about access and control. The Panama Canal must be controlled by the United States. The Caribbean and all key straits in and out of the Gulf of America must be controlled by the United States. The financial markets and global wealth must be controlled by the United States. Access to beachfront property in Venezuela afforded to China, Russia, Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, and nasty drug cartels must be controlled by the United States. Guess what? That just happened without the loss of one U.S. soldier's life. He's right. Why Venezuela and why now? I'm going to go into this and then I'm going to give you a longer briefing. I wrote a few different posts on this, but I want to, this is piece and parcel, but bear with me here, okay? For those confused or still thinking of 20th century warfare, these others that don't understand modern unrestricted warfare, weaponized economics, and proxy power projection, this is the reality. In the 21st century, natural resources are the lifeblood of power. Wars are no longer fought primarily with tanks and troops. They're fought through energy flows, trade access, currency domination, and supply chain control. This is the doctrine of unrestricted warfare. Conflict without formal declarations, without front lines, and often without a single shot fired. Power is applied asymmetrically through sanctions, trade agreements, infrastructure control, financial systems, shipping lanes, resource access, and political influence operations. The battlefield is global. The weapons are economic. The casualties are national stability and long-term sovereignty. In this framework, geography still matters, but differently. The Western Hemisphere is no longer just a regional concern. It is a strategic area of operations for the United States. If the hemisphere is secure, energy independent, supply chain resilient, financially integrated, the external powers are forced to project power across the oceans at enormous cost and vulnerability. If it is fractured, infiltrated, or economically captured, the entire global balance shifts. This is why Venezuela matters. This is why the Panama Canal matters. This is why Mexico's industrial base matters. This is why the Caribbean transit routes matter. And this is also why Greenland matters. So there's this clip out there from the television show Jack Ryan. I understand Tom Clancy's CIA on a show about the CIA, probably produced by the CIA, but they're right. And I want you to listen to what he says, because This is spot on accurate.
What would you assume is the most major threat on the world stage? Anybody, just call it out. You don't have to raise your hand.
Definitely Russia.
Definitely Russia. That's confident. I like it. Who says Russia? Anybody agree with her? Hands? Okay, great. Who else?
China.
Stop yelling at me, but China is a good answer. Anybody? Who else? China?
North Korea?
North Korea. Any North Korea takers? And Venezuela? Anybody? No? Oh, yeah. One guy in the back. A little worried about Venezuela. Everybody's cool with Venezuela? No threat? Okay. Let me ask you this. Which one of these places can claim to have the largest oil deposit on the planet? More than Saudi? More than Iran? Wow. Okay. What about things like gold? More than all the mines in Africa combined? The fact is that Venezuela is arguably the single greatest resource of oil and minerals on the planet. So, why is this country in the midst of one of the greatest humanitarian crises in modern history? Let's meet President Nicolas Reyes. After rising to power on a wave of nationalist pride, in a mere 6 years, this guy has crippled the national economy by half. He has raised the poverty rate by almost 400%. Luckily for the rest of us, he's up for re-election. So, who's running against him? This is Gloria Bonalde. Now, Gloria is a history professor turned activist. She's running against him on a
Machado
social justice platform and on the strength of, in my humble opinion, just not being an asshole. Analyst predictions, as of today, have the chances of Venezuela's total economic collapse at 87%. On the news, they'll call it a crisis. But on the world stage, they'll call it a failed state. If you've never heard that term, other examples of a failed state in recent history are Yemen, Iraq, and Syria. And if that's not bad enough news for you, well, Venezuela is also the only one of these places within 30-minute range from the U.S. of next-gen nuclear missiles. You will not hear about any of this on the news because the biggest players on the world stage do not want you to. To them, unstable governments are nothing more than the greatest of opportunities. So, Russia, China, can never be the most major threat until countries like Venezuela leave the door open to our very own backyard.
Boom. Makes a lot more sense now, doesn't it? And so there's a lot of controversy out there. There's people all over X that have varying different opinions, and I respect everybody's opinion on this matter. I have my own. My own comes from years and years of research within geopolitics, geoeconomics, and understanding the battlefield landscape and looking at everything not from those focus perspectives, but looking at everything from a military perspective or a strategic and methodical perspective. And so I truly do not think many people understand the arena of unrestricted warfare that we are currently in. It is unrestricted. Anything and everything is a weapon of warfare. Diplomacy only works to the extent of cooperation. In a world that is at war, how do you control the chessboard and maintain at a base minimum a stalemate? We are in a multi-domain battlefield. There are variables outside our control and variables inside our control. Yet to influence or change any of those variables, an arsenal of tools comes into play. Economics, supply chain, monetary policy, influence leadership, kinetic warfare, etc. Here is the reality. We as a civilization are on the brink of a technological revolution. The technology being developed today is magnitudes more powerful than the Silicon Revolution that occurred after World War II. This technology has to have an infrastructure built out. Understanding this brings about opportunities to form and shape global power by controlling the variables. What are the primary variables that are going to play a massive role in controlling technology that is magnitudes greater than the regular computer and what the world that it built? Energy. raw materials, rare earth metals, etc., domain management, air, sea, land, space, cyber, computational power, data, accessibility to domains, trade, maritime routes, proximity to vulnerabilities. There are many more variables, but this gives a very general idea. In the global domain, there are only 3 nations that can compete within all of these domains: the US, Russia, and China. Russia is a far-placed third in this domain. We have to view Russia as a variable of allegiance. Either US or Chinese, it doesn't matter. But they are an intermediary player, but not a top contender. Europe and other countries are not even on the chessboard. Instead, they become pawns of action and control. And this is why Trump's national security strategy came out and basically mimicked the Monroe Doctrine, misaligned with Europe and NATO and the UN, basically telling them to screw off. Like I said, back in January 25, they're irrelevant to what's happening in the world right now. The only thing that boosts them up and gives them power is if we proclaim that they have it. And Trump has pulled the rug and said, you have nothing. You have shit economies. We pay for your defense. We are your military. No more. Europe and other countries are not even on the chessboard. Now, take into account Venezuela. Rampant corruption and criminality within Venezuela has played a major role in shaping U.S. politics, stealing elections and infiltrating our country. Iran. They have been a financier of terrorism globally, specifically in destabilizing the Middle East. I'm not going to get into, for the sake of longevity, how British intelligence had a piece of that, how the CIA had a piece of that, and how Western powers and military-industrial complex exasperated all of that. We're not going to get into that, but Iran has been the other side of all of that. Now, the real connecting variables of all of this is accessibility and resources, specifically from a military perspective of unrestricted warfare. The objective would be limiting China's access and forcing them into a global marketplace for energy. To do this, you have to change the political alignment of these countries, then restore their resources back to the global marketplace in a controllable environment. With recent defense cooperation agreements and pacts made in the Middle Eastern countries, specifically those that control OPEC, UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Trump has produced a proxy sanction network. If war broke out tomorrow, China would have 100 days within their strategic petroleum reserve to sustain themselves. And that means that doesn't even talk about how they're cutting off civilian infrastructure from this, because everything goes into the war funding. Yet the maritime channels open and the ability to purchase energy from countries sanctioned by the West, this becomes a wartime variable that changes the dynamic of war. That 100 days now expands indefinitely as long as shipping channels remain open, accessibility. China purchases 70% of its energy underneath Western sanctions, primarily from Iran, Venezuela, and Russia. Remove those variables of alignment and you produce a geoeconomic stalemate where war cannot manifest. This is the idea. Use China's control strategy of unrestricted warfare against them. What are we talking about? In China's 100-year plan, China's model is unrestricted competition, not traditional conquest. They seek to control economic leverage, supply chain dominance, technological capture, legal and institutional warfare, information warfare. This aligns closely with the People's Liberation Army doctrine of unrestricted warfare written by Xi Jinping and Wang Zhengzhou. I didn't pronounce those right. The goal is to make military conflict unnecessary or unwinnable for the opponent. Trump has flipped the script. When it said military is the only way, this is the idea. In warfare, sometimes that moral and ethical framework has to be removed to ensure survivability. This is a war on resources, people. What we are building right now through the Trump administration is all about control of access to the Western Hemisphere. That's what Maduro was all about. Well, Maduro is multifaceted because Maduro is now a star witness in voter fraud. We'll get into that in a second. But the primary reason that they wanted to get in there and control Venezuela was resources. Oh, it's all about the oil. Yeah, it is. And Trump is not afraid to admit it. He even openly stated, yeah, we wanted their oil. So Venezuela is more about China than it is Maduro. Energy isn't just a commodity anymore. It's a strategic leverage. The U.S. doesn't need to own the world's oil. It only needs to control supply reentry, trade legitimacy, transit security, and pricing power. With Venezuela heavy crude returning to U.S.-aligned control, Gulf Coast refineries will get their ideal feedstock batch. What do I mean by that? Venezuela is very rich in heavy crude. Heavy crude has to be refined in a certain process. The number one place on the planet to refine heavy crude just happens to be the Gulf Coast of the United States within Louisiana and Texas. With Trump going in there and sending Western oil companies to begin rebuilding the infrastructure in Venezuela to pull the oil out, of which then they will pay the Venezuelan people for that, which will go into a sovereign wealth fund for the Venezuelan people. Then that oil will come over to the United States of America and it'll get refined in the Gulf Coast of the United States and then sold to China. What a fucking plan, Donald Trump. Absolutely brilliant. So Joseph Malik went over there. He says, fuck Trump and the Zionist doctrine. Bro, I'm sorry, but you have no clue what the fuck you're talking about. And I you know, these people out there, they're like, oh my God, the Jews control everything. The people that say that Jews control everything can't name one Jew who controls things. You ever notice that? The Jews, they own the world. They control everything. All media. Oh, they control all politics. Oh, really? Name me one Jew that controls all media. Name me one Jew that controls all politics. Anytime, buddy. Bring it. I'll debate anybody on that topic. What you're talking about are multiple different things when you say the Zionist doctrine. Bibi Netanyahu is controlled by Donald Trump. If you don't believe me, go watch my other shows. What we're talking about and the influence of the political Zionist lobby here in the United States of America is $4 million a year of political influence on average in reference to $100 million. And I said $3 to $4 million. In other words, to $100 million from the oil lobby and other lobbies. So don't even get me started. Jacob Rothschild. Oh, Jacob Rothschild. Yeah, firstly, the Rothschilds are about as religious as this fucking soda can, right? Yes, okay, they own the state of Israel through the 1948 Declaration, Balfour Declaration, given to them by Lord Balfour. Okay, great. Do you even know the bank that the Rothschilds own? Do you understand that they basically been cut off economically with all of the sanctions that Trump has brought about, with everything that Trump is doing with the illicit crime organization, with everything that Trump has been doing to stop the war in Ukraine and undermining the European and the British, that it's basically stopping everything that was in play by the Rothschilds? Go watch Promethean Action if you don't believe me. Go listen to them over there, Promethean Action. They'll tell you all about it. Okay, let me get back into this before I George Soros. George Soros is, okay, he might have Jewish ancestry. He's not a practicing Jew. He doesn't go to, on the Sabbath with his yarmulke people, okay? What you're talking about is a completely different sect of Judaism, which is an occult sect known as Sabbatean Frankists, okay? They invented modern-day Zionism, utilized it as a weapon, but it's not the same type of influence that you're seeing on the geopolitical standpoint. And I call them the Jewish mafia. And they don't rule and control the world. Actually, they have very little power and control over the world. That's why they're fighting for more of it. They're trying to fight to get power and control. But anyways, so with Venezuela's heavy crude returning to the U.S. aligned control through Gulf oil refineries. This lowers diesel, jet fuel, and petrochemical costs, directly hitting inflation while boosting U.S. refining dominance. Layer that with U.S. production flexibility, Gulf defense pacts, and influence over shipping, insurance, and settlement systems, and you get managed global abundance. Price stabilized lower, risk premiums collapse, and cartel leverage weakens. This is where it becomes a deterrence. With China importing 70% of Western sanctioned oil, it holds roughly 90 to 100 days of strategic reserves for wartime consumption. In this conflict scenario, oil wouldn't need to be cut off. Global supply would simply be reallocated away from China through allied systems of trade and transit. That's not escalation, that's predictability. Energy leverage creates mutually assured economic consequences, not destruction. China can't easily replace U.S. aligned energy security. The U.S. can't easily replace China's manufacturing base. So war becomes irrational. This is how modern power works. Not missiles first, markets first. Not dominance, structural leverage. Not coercion, mutually assured cooperation. Energy stability may be the strongest force preventing the next great power war, and Trump just took the first step in ensuring that the U.S. will be in control. Oh, now he's going on a religious rant. I'm not even going to bother going in that direction. So President Trump comes out and says what? Says China will get the Venezuelan oil due to their good relationship with President Xi Jinping. It's almost like this was the plan all along. That how do you deter and ensure that war does not break out between the United States and China? Is that within the multipolar framework that is being developed, China controls and dominates rare earth minerals and metals. Silver, the 34% of the global silver production comes from China. China's a manufacturing powerhouse that the U.S. can't even compete on at that level. So the U.S. is going in there to control energy. China controls manufacturing, the U.S. controls energy. If one side goes to the war with the other, they pull those pieces back and the other side dwindles away. The war doesn't happen because it becomes economic, mutually assured destruction. And so the Kobayashi letter this week, they said, what about rare earth? Venezuela has significant, largely undeveloped deposits of rare earth elements. There are some that are the same elements that are nearly prompted the new U.S. tariffs on China October 10th. So when we start to look at this, it's a strategic standpoint. Largest oil reserves in the world, massive gold endowment, one of the largest iron ore deposits in the Western Hemisphere. Venezuela is huge in the sense of resources. And Donald Trump's basically saying, if it's in the Western Hemisphere, that's our side of the world. We're going to control that. If China and Russia want to do business over here, they need to go through us. And yes, I get you're a sovereign nation over there, but guess who controls the maritime channels? Guess who's the big dog on this street? All right. So when Patrick Byrne and Emerald and Laura Logan did interviews pertaining to what happened in 2024, what happened in 2020, we learn that Venezuela is a controlled state, that Maduro is being controlled by the Cubans and the Colombians, and working with the Chinese, Russians, and Iranians. But Cuban intelligence was actually one of the top intelligence agencies that were controlling the drug trade from Colombia and Venezuela and controlling Maduro. Now, this was kind of hard for a lot of us to understand, but if you understand Operation Underwoods and you understand the function of how the CIA under Allen Dulles came about and how the Cuba was actually the primary country of origin of which the CIA put their tentacles into, and that the rise of Fidel Castro actually only stopped and delayed them for a short term. It really just cut the mob out. The mafia were the first there. The CIA went in, replicated their whole strategy. Castro rises up, kicks the mob out, but the CIA really never left. And the CIA over years infiltrated them, and rogue factions began to misalign. So once you have CIA factions that begin to align within Cuba, within Latin America, and start controlling the drug trade, they kind of become rogue factions, what I call the deep state intelligence apparatus. The deep state intelligence apparatus isn't necessarily the CIA, the NSA, the MI6, or the Mossad. It's functions of those, rogue actors within those, but also unorganized affiliation with other NGOs, transnational organizations. But this was being ran and operated through a command center, from what we are gathering, through Cuban intelligence. Now, Patrick Burns said that the Cuban intelligence controls Maduro. So we knew that Maduro couldn't just say, hey, I'm going to leave the country, I'm going to step down, because he'd be killed. So we talked about this months ago, how Nicolas Maduro most likely be taken out by U.S. military out of there. He'll surrender, but it'll have to be some big type of showboat. And that's exactly what we just saw. Now, what's interesting is this. The Cuban government has claimed that 32 Cubans were killed in the Maduro raid. They were most likely part of the security force of Maduro. So the question becomes, why were 32 Cubans part of Maduro's security? Sounds like more like they were his handlers and ensuring that he served their purpose and agenda. So Rubio is asked about Cuba, and we've been hearing Cuba all over the last few days, Cuba and Colombia the last few days.
Let's go bonkers.
Is the Cuban government the Trump administration's next target, Mr. Secretary? Very quickly.
Well, the Cuban government is a huge problem. Yeah, the Cuban government is a huge problem. First of all,
so is that a yes?
Cuba, but I don't think people fully appreciate. I think they're in a lot of trouble. Yes, I'm not going to talk to you about what our future steps are going to be and our policies are going to be right now in this regard, but I don't think it's any mystery that we are not big fans of the Cuban regime, who, by the way, are the ones that were propping up Maduro. His entire internal security force, his internal security apparatus is entirely controlled by Cubans. One of the untold stories here is how, in essence, you talk about colonization, because I think you said Dulce Rodriguez mentioned that. The ones who have sort of colonized, at least inside the regime, are Cubans. It was Cubans that guarded Maduro. He was not guarded by Venezuelan bodyguards. He had Cuban bodyguards. In terms of their internal intelligence, who spies on who inside to make sure there are no traitors, those are all Cubans.
All right.
Interesting. And what else do we get of this? Trump says Cuba is next to fall. Trump dropped a warning shot saying Cuba's days might be numbered. With Venezuela oil cut off, the island's economy is running on fumes. They got all of their income from Venezuela. They're not getting any of it, he said, calling the regime broken on the brink. According to Trump, the collapse is coming fast, and Cuban Americans watching from the U.S. won't be shedding any tears. Then we have U.S. President Trump issues warning to Colombia President Gustavo Petro. Colombia is run by a sick man who likes making cocaine and selling to the United States. He won't be doing it much longer. Colombia came out and says they're threatening to take up arms against the United States of America. That's probably not a good idea. And there's a few different things. We're going to see massive destabilization in this region. The U.S. is in control of Venezuela. We're going to get into that part in just 1 second, in the context of the U.S. is in control of Venezuela. And even though Venezuela is saying we're not, you're going to get validation that we are. But I want you to listen to a Navy SEAL's reaction of what happened in Venezuela, because what you saw happen was absolutely one of the most epic military operations that we've ever seen in our lives. And this is coming from people in the military, but listen to this Navy SEAL talk about what happened.
What was your initial reaction to the news that had broken about Venezuela?
Easy, quick, first thing, Donald Trump sent the most elite fighting force in the world to black bag a commie narco terrorist in the middle of the night, snatched him out of his bed like a bunch of pipe hitters, put him on a plane and flew him back to New York so he could stand trial for everything that he did to Americans. What's better than that? It's unbelievable. This is something that it makes my heart fill with joy. And my buddies that were texting me with from Delta and from HRT and some of the guys that were part of the operations, when they were texting, I will say it's a little bit of professional jealousy, because that's the op that everybody wants to go on. You desire to be a part of that. And you got the left, you got Democrats screaming, imperialism to the top of their lungs. So these are the people, by the way, who are sitting to the side dreaming about making sure your tax dollars go to funding some transgender musical in Caracas. Meanwhile, we've got a president who sends the real dudes to black bag a bad guy and bring him to justice. There's nothing more American than that. So that's kind of my first take on it. And that's exactly what we need to be doing. And that's exactly what we need to support the administration as they continue to do things like this.
Boom. He's not wrong. I want to give a shout out to the Boom Diggity on Rumble, $100 Rumble ramp. Keep kicking ass, Josh. Love your energy and your huge ass brain. Thank you so much, Boom Diggity. And then also we had, went to another one here. And another one from the Boom Diggity again. Highly recommend Treasure Island. Great book that dives into the construction of the spider web, how Britain built the new overseas empire and the creation of secret jurisdictions. Awesome. Thanks, Boom Diggity. Appreciate that. And thanks for whomever gave all the subscriptions out there. You guys are awesome. Appreciate it. And it looks like Atomic Blonde gifted 10 subscriptions. Thank you so much, Atomic Blonde. Appreciate you guys. Tonight, you probably heard all of the news coming out there of shots being fired. Security forces opened fire in Venezuela on unidentified drones over the presidential palace. Well, they were their own drones. So this is kind of how trigger sensitive Venezuela is right now. They're on high guard because they think that more is coming. Excuse me. It's over unless they fail to comply, but it's over for now. Pam Bondi just confirmed that the Venezuelan operation was a law enforcement function. Congressional Democrats can cry and whine all they want. Trump just broke 0 laws. And it's 10 USC 287, I believe. Basically how the U.S. military can intervene with law enforcement to enact on narco-terrorists. And then the foreign terrorist declaration that is brought about for this allows exactly this type of stuff to happen. So pretty cool right there. Now, before I get into this next part, let me go over here. I want to get one thing done on Rumble just real quick. And let me see here. We're going to do 1775 coffee. All right. So if you still haven't tried 1775 coffee, now is your shot. The 1775 starter kit just dropped, only 1,000 units. You're getting a bold dark roast that hits hard, the smooth medium roast, and the Vitality mushroom coffee for clean energy and laser focus, no crash. All single origin, small batch, toxin-free and mold-free. Plus, you're also getting a gold spoon clip because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. A frother strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's opinions, and a black 1775 tumbler, $175 worth of coffee and gear, yours for $99. This is for the ones who have been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble, wondering if it's actually worth it. The spoiler, it is. Go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and morning routine that stands for something just like Rumble does. Now, if anybody's interested in that, you can head on over to Rumble, and the links should be over there for you. Now, within Donald Trump's posting last night, he posted a lot of different Anon accounts. One of them is Drogo, and Drogo posted this. Trump just posted the video about Dominion voting machine fraud. You think the timing is a coincidence? A Venezuelan military intelligence whistleblower confirmed the CIA outsources election rigging technology to Smartmatic and Dominion from Venezuela. And Donald Trump reposted that. To give you a hint, Nicolas Maduro is being questioned about all of this. How do we know? Well, listen, a former CIA analyst and station chief has already exposed the 2020 election manipulation through Smartmatic and Dominion. And the tie to Venezuelans Cartel de la Sol, CIA, China, Serbia, and the global election fraud cartel. 72 different countries are influenced this, including the United States of America. The first time they did it was in 2008 with Senator Barack Obama and then President Barack Obama. They tried it in 2016. Servers were shut down. 2018, they stole the midterms. 2020, they stole the election. This is real. It's legit, but you need massive political backing in order to do something like this and get away with it. Now, we went in there, we took Maduro. I believe he's going to be a star witness into the 2020 election fraud cases. I talked about this a little bit last night. We know that there's 4 grand juries impaneled right now throughout the United States. We have New York, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Florida. So you have the Southern District of New York with Jay Clayton. You have the Southern District of Florida with Jason Quinones. You have Virginia with Lindsay Halligan, and you have Pennsylvania, which we haven't heard anything on. Now, I don't know what's going on in Pennsylvania with that 4th grand jury. That was from John Solomon, who talked and discussed about that. But from what we get, Jay Clayton is most likely investigating financial crimes and the financial moneymakers. So this is Soros-backed channels. This is Arabella Advisors and dark money channels and how all of those flows go. Lindsay Halligan is most likely investigating the deep state channels. This is Brennan, Clapper, all of these guys, Comey, Obama, Clinton, and how all of that functions. Then you have Quinones down in Florida, and this is the real big one. He has basically full reign. He started with the Mar-a-Lago raid. And you got to remember, the Mar-a-Lago raid dealt with specific documents that the FBI was looking for. What were those documents? I told you on this show years ago what those documents were. That was the Crossfire Hurricane binder that Donald Trump declassified twice, September 12th, 2020, December 20th, 2020. On Twitter, I hereby now declassify all documents related to the Crossfire Hurricane, Crossfire Razor, and the Hillary Clinton email scandal. He did that twice, same post. January 17th is when the redactions were finally released by the FBI, sent back to the Trump administration. He took a copy of that binder with him. The day after the Biden administration came back in, they reclassified the majority of those documents through national security and then utilized that reclassification to go after Donald Trump and try to get that binder out of Mar-a-Lago. Now, Quinones is the one that's investigating that, but that opens up 2020 election fraud. That opens up January 6th, the weaponization of government against Donald Trump. And so all of this aligns and starts to interconnect these grand juries. New York, the moneymakers, you have the deep state over here, and then you have the criminality of the weaponization of January 6th of stolen elections that play into it here, but then also go into FISA-gate. So all of that, I believe, is going to come together in one big RICO case that's going to be intertwined. Now, the question is when will we see indictments? I think what you're going to hear, maybe even tomorrow, is the first news and release pertaining to the 2020 election theft, because the only reason that I think they got Maduro out there now is because the indictments are about to flow. I'm serious. The reason I think they got Maduro out is because I think Maduro already gave a testimony. And I think that this was an extraction because they're about to indict people globally over all of this. And it's going to be names that you probably never heard of. Cuban, Colombian, Iranian, Chinese, probably something like that. Probably people you do know. But those indictments are going to come out and they would have killed Maduro because they would have knew that he was going to be the leaker. So they had to extract him out. And I think that that's going to come about relatively soon, potentially even today, January 6th. So very interesting there. But then we get the idea that Venezuela is now controlled by the United States. So Stephen Miller confirmed Venezuela's new government is publicly bluffing, saying they have 100% caved to Donald Trump in private. They told Rubio, made clear they will meet the terms, demands, and conditions and requirements of the United States of America. Miller was asked about Venezuela and didn't waste time softening the answer. What the president said is true. The United States of America is running Venezuela by definition. That is true, Jake. We live in a world where you can talk all you want about international niceties and everything else, but we live in the real world, Jake, that is governed by strength. Now, what's he talking about there? He's talking about this audio that was captured from Donald Trump of where he's talking about this. Listen right here.
The next question is who's in charge of Venezuela right now? Have you spoken to the newly sworn in president there, Rodriguez? And what are your thoughts on the entire situation? You said the U.S. would run Venezuela.
We're dealing with the people. We're dealing with the people that just got sworn in. And don't ask me who's in charge, because I'll give you an answer and it'll be very controversial.
What does that mean?
It means we're in charge.
Have you? The next question.
It means where we are in charge. And this is backed up by Stephen Miller. This is backed up by Marco Rubio. Karen Levette just confirmed that none other than Marco Rubio is the constant correspondence with the Venezuelan government, just the man that we need in this position along with dozens of others. Rubio is a rock star, and I trust the judgment in placing him in this position. So Marco Rubio is this guy going out there and talking with Delcy Rodriguez, most likely over in Venezuela, but they've completely acquiesced to Donald Trump's terms and are cooperating. Now, I agree with Rudy Giuliani here. He says, don't waste time, cut off the entire head of the snake. The sooner Delcy Rodriguez is removed, the better. It was smart to let her help rat out her boss, but she is an integral part of the Chavez Maduro corrupt homicidal regime. The sooner she and her communist homicidal regime is removed, the more likely we avoid the recurrent historical mistake American intelligence. Rudy Giuliani is spot on correct here. So Delcy Rodriguez, Jorge, her father and brother are all within the cartels. They are the ones that hold the $1 trillion of net worth by basically stealing the Venezuelan oil. And whether she was the one working with the CIA or not, I don't know. I'm assuming that she was, because I think that she was a controlled CIA asset. I think they're calling in a lot of favors from the controlled CIA assets now that the CIA is under the control of the Trump administration. Or at least that's the impression that I'm getting. I know the volume is low on that audio. It's not me. That's their version. Sorry about that. But I do agree with Rudy Giuliani here that Delcy Rodriguez needs to get removed. And Donald Trump, interestingly enough, rug pulled Israel's choice for president of Venezuela, Machado. I don't think people were expecting that, but it happened. Now, Maduro entered prison, is in prison, him and his wife. He came into court today and he declares himself a prisoner of war in the U.S. court. And so this is really interesting. He declares himself kidnapped and a prisoner of war. The judge intervened and basically told him, no, this is a Clinton judge, 91-year-old. I think that this guy is going to be rather honest forward, and I don't think he's going to get any preferential treatment. But I do think that Maduro is most likely going to enter witness protection program, him and his wife, at some point. And I think that's why he was distracted with his wife. All right. So changing tunes just a little bit. Today we learned Minnesota Governor Tim Walz will not be seeking re-election in Minnesota. We know Mike Lindell is running. From what I gather, though, is that Amy Klobuchar, Senator Klobuchar, will be running for Minnesota governor. And from what I heard, Tim Walz is potentially going to run for senator. So this aligns with Vance Bolter saying that he wanted Amy Klobuchar to step down so he could run for Senate. So, but the Trump administration today went out there and said, not too fast. There might be some indictments coming. We'll get into that here in a second. HHS has confirmed that Somalia's UN ambassador was involved in healthcare company convicted in Medicaid fraud. And there's massive amounts of other politicians are involved in all of this. Up to 2,000 federal agents have surged into Minneapolis to arrest illegal aliens and probe the massive fraud. This is nationwide attention. So this is crazy. We are seeing right now that Minnesota is in the radar. China is coming next. And Cactus 46N2, thank you for your great work and service, Josh. I appreciate $20 Australian. Appreciate you, buddy. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. But what I want you to understand is that this is a multi-fronted battle. Number one is you got the big dogs, U.S. and China. We have the multipolar world framework that is being implemented, but also structurally and strategically aligned to kind of a global stalemate to where China has power and control over a region and kind of processes where the United States has power, priority, control over something else, to where no one can get more powerful than the other without the other's help. Okay, a forced kind of work combination. Then you're battling the deep state. Then you're battling the infiltration in our country at each state level. And this is what the Trump administration is focusing on right now, is weeding out the corruption in the states. And we're talking New York. We're talking California. We're talking Minnesota. And I'm excited because I'm in Minnesota. So really interesting right there. I can't wait to start seeing shit actually hit the proverbial fan. Now, in Iran, switching over, we have a color revolution in place. It's actually Operation Gladio. But we have Iranians chanting for the Shah's son to come out and to join the revolution. We have Donald Trump stating that if Iran injures or kills any protesters, that the U.S. is locked and loaded and ready to go. Ex-Israeli Prime Minister Bennett posts cryptic video of an hourglass being turned over, stating it's time. Israel War Room, the infamous X account, posted popcorn with a time glass. Why? Because the Israeli parliament has agreed for strikes on Iran's ballistic missile facilities. But I also think that what we are seeing right now for Reza Pahlavi to be installed as the next leader of Iran and the removal of Khamenei. So we are about to see a coup in Iran. I think Israel is going to run and execute it. U.S. is going to support it. And is this a good thing? I've actually talked about this at length last year during the Iran-Israel conflict, that yes, this is actually a really good thing. You got to get rid of that evil regime and dictator, and the Iranian people rising up. If we're just going to support that, and sure, yes, that's a color revolution. Yes, that's a regime change. I don't give a shit. But you have to understand is that if we're going to align the world towards peace and prosperity, if we're going to have a technological revolution that is going to completely transform the entire face of this world, but we want to keep it in line with the principles of morality and an ethical framework, and we don't want those powerful tools to fall in the hands of evil dictators that are going to turn them into weapons and start killing people in the context of a holy war, then what do we got to do? Donald Trump's going to start removing the bad actors, and that's exactly what he's doing. So I've talked about this at length. I've written about it on my Substack. You can go check that out. Those Substacks are still available if you want to check them out. redpillproject.substack.com. redpillproject.substack.com if you want to check those out. In Greenland is next up. Unrestricted warfare. Greenland is next. Greenland is about the control of the future of the Arctic economy. The polar ice recedes, and new shipping lanes emerge, cutting transit times between Asia, Europe, and North America. Whoever controls the Arctic access controls the next generation of global trade routes. Layer on top of that Greenland's vast resources and rare earth elements, critical minerals, and the geographic position between North America, Europe, and the Arctic, and its importance becomes obvious. What were we told? Donald Trump.
We need Greenland for national security.
Well, there he said it. I couldn't pause it for some reason. X does this weird thing when you open it up, it just auto plays.
And for national,
pause it, but let's listen to it.
We need Greenland for national security, not for minerals. We have so many sites for minerals and oil and everything. We have more oil than any other country in the world. We need Greenland for national security. And if you take a look at Greenland, you look up and down the coast, you have Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need Greenland.
We need Greenland for national security. What does that mean? It could be something weird and unusual, out of this world. It could be the remnants of an ancient civilization. It could just be military superiority and the Golden Dome. But Trump yesterday gave Denmark 2 months. We will worry about Greenland in 2 months. Let's talk about Greenland in 20 days. So Steve Miller was asked, can you rule out that the U.S. military would ever take Greenland by force? Stephen Miller said, by what right does Denmark assert control over Greenland? The United States is the power of NATO. For the U.S. to secure the Arctic region, Greenland should be part of the United States. No one is going to fight the United States over the future of Greenland. As in, Greenland is about to become either a U.S. territory or a U.S. state. And I think that the people of Greenland would actually vote to be a U.S. state, very similar to Alaska, which now we begin to see the multipolar world come into being. And, you know, I do believe, I said this last night, I do believe China is going to get Taiwan. I think in about 5 years, China is going to get Taiwan. It's going to be naturally and organically, but it's going to be after various parts of the manufacturing base are moved off the island, which are actually being built out in Arizona right now. So really interesting time to be alive, people. A lot going on, a lot happening. I know it's getting late for a lot of people, so we're going to end here, but I'll be back with you tomorrow night. So I have wrestling matches every day this week. Friday's going to be an even later one. So a lot of wrestling matches. So each show this week will probably be late, just giving you a heads up on that. But I appreciate you. Much love, respect. Don't forget to visit us over at redpills.tv. Subscribe where you're at. Give that thumbs up. Go on out there, help support us. Redpills.tv has all of our links. Redpillproject.substack.com. You can become a premium member on any of our premium subscription platforms. Appreciate you guys. Much love, respect. God bless. Take care. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.
There was a time when our children stood tall, hand on their hearts, one voice for all. There was a time when honor had weight, when the flag was a symbol, not a debate. There was a time when our history was known, with pride in the rules that made us our own. There was a time, respect for the brave, for those who bled, for the lives they gave. Now the homeland burns in silent war. Truth is twisted, we can't ignore. Voice still calls, we the people will not fall. There was a time, but the time isn't near. The great awakening is here. Dark to light, veil under, patriots rise. We are one, land of the free, home of the brave. Children of freedom, stand for the light. There was a time when truth was clear, when the media served, not ruled by fear. There was a time when leaders stood fast, guarding the people, defending the past. Now corruption wears a crown, lies are fed to tear us down. But Q said watch, and Q said see. The silent war will set us free. From the front lines, soldiers stare, wondering if we're still there. Their blood, their hope, their sacrifice will not be sold for a last prize. There was a time, but the time isn't near. The great awakening is here. Dark to light, the veil undone, patriots rise. We are one, land of the free, home of the brave. No more silence, no more slaves. Answer the call, take back the fight. Children of freedom, stand for the light.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on. Or we will spend our sunset years telling our children what it was once like in the United States where men were free.
There was a time, the time is near. The great awakening is here. Dark to light, veil undone, patriots rise. We are one, land of the free, home of the brave. No more silence,
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation. I want you to get mad.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
The more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out.
These people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy.
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!